Stream here on Thursday. It's our game analysis stream. Subscribers can submit their games. We've got a bunch already. Welcome everybody. Mr. Asterbait, what's up? So we're starting just a couple minutes late. Sorry about that. A little bit out of whack with my schedule. Trying to get everything coordinated. Moving to the new time zone. I've been here 2 weeks yet I'm still not acclimated. What's up? Alright. 2.5 hour stream. Normally we do 10 games of analysis. I've got a list here. So far, Slow Hand, Warnaki, Save a Dog, Asterbait, Mr. Coffee, Nefidov, Move 11. That's only it's only 7, so we've got room for a couple more. Move 11 was the last one. Yeah, I don't think we missed anybody. Let's get started with the first one. Mr. Slowhand. Wait and see if he's here, maybe. Mr. Slowhand, give him a chance. Let's have a look at our simul game from Sunday. Mr. Slowhand's our biggest donator from this week, and I'd like to kind of wait a minute to see if he can get see if he gets in here for the stream. If not, he can watch, but I like to see you guys here live while we're doing the games if possible. Is JCS in the house? We haven't seen him in a while. Asterbait, what do you think? Jim? Asterbait's got shout outs to Jim and JCS. We are starting about 9 minutes late. I apologize, guys. I'm a little confused today about the time. What is up, everyone? Tomorrow, we've got Friday, Fast Friday, 5+3 Fast Blitz scheduled for tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. on Friday. That is the schedule. Then Saturday's off. Sunday, we have our simul stream. Warnaki's here. Warnaki, you're on the list. Maybe I'll do your game first, since you're present. And wait and see if Mr. Slowhand joins us, because he's technically first. Let's start with Warnaki's game and find out if Mr. Slowhand's going to be here or not. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late, guys. A little disorganized. Warnaki says, well, hello there after some weeks. I had this game with White a couple of days ago. The end was kind of weak, but I was winning anyway. Aspie, you're not the reason for the late start. Do not take the blame. The Bagman. Rudy Giuliani of the chess world. No, Asterbait, it's not Asterbait's fault. Don't listen to him. Alright. It's purely my fault. Thursday sub-submission. So this is from Warnaki. Horvitz defense, whatever that is. Weird. Alright. I want to close this so we don't see engine analysis. Alright, Warnaki, you're White in this game. Somebody played a very strange move there. Original opening. D4, E6. I was thinking of weird openings I can play for the Wednesday stream, and the deferred Polish defense. I was thinking, if D4, I showed Asterbait earlier, if D4, A6, Knight F3, we could play B5. I like this delayed Polish. But you don't give him that chance. You did give him that chance. Yeah, actually, Knight F3. So the deferred Polish, very deadly. Keep your eye open for that, Warnaki. But he did not find that. He played Queen F6. Make sure we've got lichess in the description. I do. Alright, usually my subscriber stream is our quietest stream. We have the fewest viewers, usually just the subscribers. This is my way of saying thank you to you guys who subscribe. Spending time going over some longer games and getting serious about the analysis. So, the deferred Polish. I like it. That's going to be something I'm going to try on Wednesdays. Black played Queen F6. This is quite an original move. There's the classic queen trap with like Bishop G5 and Bishop on D3. That could be possible if the E pawn wasn't on E2. But nothing here. So when you face a move like this, I mean, we all know not to bring the queen out early, but the temptation is to try to punish this straight away, and I think that oftentimes is a mistake. If you're too impatient about trying to exploit mistakes like queen f6, you might go down the wrong path. The temptation to play bishop g5 is maybe even like attacking a misplaced piece might even be a mistake, because we're just forcing it to go to a better square. Essentially, like, this might even be an improvement for black with the queen on g6. Nevertheless, bishop g5 is a playable move. I think, like, when you see a misplaced piece like queen f6, let's not try too hard to take advantage of it. Let it just sort of happen naturally. So I like e4 in this position. There would be a question about what to do if you do e4, black plays queen g6 again, like attacking that. He could consistently try to put pressure on the e4 pawn. And if knight c3, then bishop e4, again, consistently putting pressure on that pawn. And then we'd have to calculate, we could calculate probably something nice and sharp, like bishop d3, queen g2, rook g1, queen h3, rook takes g7. I assume this is advantageous for white. This is thematic, and I think that the plan would be to castle queen side or leave the king in the center and exploit the lead in development, for example. But all right, so you played c4. Another thing you got to consider is your general opening system. I mean, if you're playing d4, c4 in most cases, it is a little messy, Warnock. I agree. It's a little bit messy, and if you don't play e4, you probably don't want to react with e4 here. Stay within your comfort zone would be my advice. So c4 is fine. Now black plays a totally random move. Well, the last variation is fine for 2500 or a strong master, but it's a little messy to sacrifice the g2 pawn. I agree. So c4 is fine, and you're playing a queen pawn game, so you may not want to play e4. Now black plays knight a6. Leave sleeping dogs lie. Now you played bishop g5. I don't know what I don't really have a feeling of like what the best move is here. I like a3, even like taking away that square from black, because he essentially has two pieces that might be using that square. Just a quiet little move. Because think about it. I mean, if you play the most natural move in this position, knight c3, black can play bishop b4. This position doesn't look that bad. Okay, the knight on a6 is sketchy. This is sketchy, but at least he gets the bishop out to a good square. a3 looks strong. Let's see what the... a3 was up there for a second, but it went down. All right, I try to guess what the engine will say. So bishop g5 feels like we're attacking the queen for the sake of attacking it here. This might actually be a mistake. I think his move might be a mistake too, though. Queen g6 looks a little safer than queen f5. Oliveira, you're not too late. Queen f5 looks more exploitable. That can be hit by e4. The queen would be better off on g6. Also would give him the ability to move his f pawn forward. Plus queen g6 keeps an eye on g2 in many lines, making it difficult for white to develop his king side. So this is a mistake. And now you just suggested a trade of queens. If knight c3, bishop b4, fighting for control of the center. I mean, I still think that this is a good move, although not everyone might appreciate it. If we can take that square away from two enemy pieces, I mean, that's probably worthwhile. It's a very unusual opening. It doesn't really have a name. The opening explorer is calling the opening d4 e6 the Horwitz defense, but we went on to, I don't know, total insanity with queen f6. It's not a real opening. Queen f5, queen d3. So I think this move, like, you're kind of letting him get away with that misplaced queen. You're almost justifying his misplaced queen. It's not bad for white. Your move fundamentally develops piece. It fundamentally controls the center. But I think that you're not taking advantage of the opponent's weakness here, which is the exposed nature of his own queen. You're like, all right, I'm just going to cancel out your queen. It's just a move that's not bad, queen d3, but you're not taking advantage of him, you know. I would play a3, or maybe other options which look good are like g3. If you just want to play like g3 and bishop g2 and castle and make his queen look stupid on f6. I think against the fianchetto formation, the queen on f6 looks particularly sort of stupid. But all right, you can't base your whole game around his queen. Anyway, this is not the best, but it's not bad. Queen d3, you're still slightly better. And then he just violates every principle in the book with queen g4, pretty much. Technical problems just challenged me to rated correspondence chess. Technical problems. If you really want to play against me, I will play 5 days correspondence, but I can't do ones that are that fast. So this is huge now. He's just like queen d3 now, just as like a free move for you. He just wasted another tempo. His queen is almost easy to trap on g4 now. And then you just pulled your bishop back with really no clear reasoning behind it. I don't mind the move, and I still think your position is neat and very tidy and solid and better, but I don't really, I think in a blitz game I would play h3, try to hunt him down. We still can't trap it though. It's just not that easy. All right, I don't mind bishop d2. It feels like you're wasting a little bit of time here. I don't know how you're going to sort out your king side. The best move was h3. The computer even agreed. Though I don't know what the rest of the development will be. Maybe h3, g3. We could play like h3, queen h5, or even g4. If you want to, you could do this. If you wanted to. I'm not in love with trading queens and open the h-file for black here. That might even be good for him to some degree. So, all right, this is a safe move. Knight f6 and now knight e5, which looks bad. I don't know what this does. It just attacks the queen for the sake of attacking it. Actually, he's almost trapped. If you could literally trap it, I would agree knight e5 is a good move, but how are you going to trap it? Queen h5, h3, g4. Queen h5, h3. Even if you get in queen h5, h3, g4, you had to try something. You don't have to try anything. Just develop your pieces. You can play g3, bishop g2. Complete your development. I think that's a good move for white. Just sensible development. Eventually, like, he's going to get in trouble just based on development. And you want to get your king castled. You could also castle queenside if you're so inclined. I don't know if you like to castle queenside in queen pawn games. This is a little bit fearful, I would say. You're trying to trade queens because his queen is disturbing you. h3 looks natural. Almost trapping his queen. The problem is how are you going to trap it on g4? Maybe you will trap it, actually. You've got g4 followed by knight f3. So this threatens to trap his queen in 2 moves. G4, queen h4, knight f3 back. And you actually trap his queen. How is he going to defend against that? Simple move, h3. Something dramatic like g5, g4. Horrible. What's the best move for black here? Yeah, he's in serious trouble. He's in serious trouble already. Bishop takes c3 followed by queen f5. That's the best he can do. Something like this. praying not to lose his queen. Yeah, this is very good. So this move, you let him off the hook. You know, his queen is the problem, and you're trading it off, leaving yourself with only a very modest advantage. Someone unsound. Prayerful. I don't know, but they're using the word prayerful a lot in the Senate impeachment investigations. Queen f3. No, I don't think this is the right idea. We want to punish that queen, not let it off the hook. It's similar to what you did before by playing queen d3 in the first time around. Try to take advantage of h3 g4 here. White still remains with an advantage, but not much. I think at this point he's almost okay. You have this tiny, tiny advantage based on the central pawns having some influence. b6 is a good move by black. Now a3. You think since he has slightly less space, he might be inclined to exchange his bishop here. But he plays this. And your move, I think, that would be effective in many cases isn't so much so because his knight is covering c7. So e4 is stronger. Just threatening a fork. That's really, really good. In fact, he should play bishop takes knight. Bishop takes knight, and then knight e4. And black's almost equal. Bishop takes knight, knight e4, rook c1, preventing double pawns, and bishop b7, or maybe something like c5. It looks like a normal opening now. It looks like a normal Queen's Indian or something like that happened, ironically, after everything's said and done. Arsenal fans, subscribe to Tier 1. He's on a 6-month streak with 18 months total. Someone on sound, where in the world are you? You're still at home. Double pawn's bad there for white. I think so, Rich. I think the less pieces are on the board, you know, I feel like the bigger those pawns look like a weak, you know, the more those pawns look like some sort of weakness. It's not necessarily going to decide the fate of the game, but we're getting closer to an endgame scenario where I think the double pawns are definitely something I don't really want to allow if I don't have to. So bishop d6, knight b5 was a little miscalculation. Black can simply move the bishop away in this position. And your knight on b5 is silly. He can kick you out with c6. There are other ways that black can play this. He can just let you take the bishop. Magnus Carlsen played what, like bishop d6 against the London system? It's not such a big deal. It's not so much... Were you talking about those double pawns, Rich? I thought you were talking about... yeah, you were talking about the white double pawns. And then we've got to talk about the black double pawns on d6 and d7. The black dark square bishop being missing, I mean, how significant would those be? If I were black, I would definitely play this. So he plays bishop e7, allowing the double pawns, knight d6 check, cd6. They're not that bad. Of course you can move the knight back, but I mean, I think you're justified in taking here. His knight is really a problem. To me, this looks like his only really major issue. It is difficult to get it into the game from this stage. The e5 break has been summoned. I'm a little concerned about white's development at this point. Your king's still here, your bishop's immobile, your rook's on h1, the c-pawn needs protection. Let's get things moving developmentally. But you played b4. It looks slow, dude. Hopefully it's not that bad, but I would definitely be more concerned about getting my pieces out. I don't think the b4 is like really an essential move here. It's a pawn move. At this stage, I think you need to get your pieces developed. I would just play like e3. Maybe rook c1. b4. Bishop takes f3. Yeah, it's a long-range piece. And one of the worst things that this move does is it loses control of e4. I think you should really consider taking with the g-pawn. Yeah, but Arsenal fan, you're talking about this e5 like it's some sort of big deal. That's like cutting off your nose to spite your face or whatever. Like, giving up this bishop for black is a huge concession in and of its own right. The fact that he plays e5 after that is a completely separate thing, but I think this is bad. Now white has a comfortable position, very compact pawn structure, control of e4. Even if black gets an e5, it's no big deal. Is he going to do take on d4 with tripled pawns or what? I would just think that black is worse here. Probably seriously worse. Or something like this. Bishop f3 is a horrible move. But I don't like this recapture as much as g takes f. I can see some benefits to it though. I mean, you've got the immediate c5. You got the immediate c5 on the a6 knight. This. Having said that, I like g takes f. E takes f is not a terrible move. I mean, white still has some pluses. The threat of c5, the activeness of the bishop on f1. There right away is like an interesting move. But again, I'm afraid you're lagging in development. So this is probably a good move. Again, no reason to chase the knight from a6, actually. You could also consider bishop d3, but Arsenal's e5 break might come to fruition. Another point, though, it's an endgame. I mean, if bishop d3, you can place the king on e2. And again, Arsenal's e5 break might really be relevant to the position in the coming play. I mean, black can choose between these different breaks depending on what's going on. You definitely want to try to keep the king in the center in an endgame if you could. I wish you had an e-pawn. Black's pawn structure, definitely a little bit bizarre. This to me looks like you're hunting the d6 pawn. Oh, that's a big deal. Very weird pawn structure. This is a weird game now. That pawn could be protected by knight e8 if need be. Actually, black wouldn't mind maybe their king on e7 here. Now you've got a4, a5 though on the queen side. It's starting to look like black is in trouble. Undoubling your pawns and trading off his strong point. Does that seem right? No. Some sort of hope chess. But black is in serious trouble already. I think the big problem is this. What is he going to do when you play a4, a5? And then invade along the a file? The bishop pair. I mean, bishop pair, schmear, whatever. I think white has a number of advantages. Bishop pair is really not doing that much. They are potentially strong, though. Yeah. It's not like the most open position in the world, but the pawn structure is looking really important here. This is an interesting decision, f4, and leaving this pawn so it just kind of gets in the way. I kind of like that. Blockade strategy. I mean, you can outflank him with g4, g5. That's amazing. Then the bishops will really look dominating. Bishop e3, bishop d4, bishop on d4, my god. Now that will just be the centerpiece to the whole position. Yeah, I mean, I think that targeting the d6 pawn you know, is a plan. Like takes here, but that allows knight c5, Arsenal. You probably don't want to do that. Don't want to give him that outpost. This ended up being a really strong move, f4. h3 is probably over preparation. You could just play like g4 directly if you wanted to. But I think you can prepare it with bishop e3 blockading with that square. White has every sort of advantage now. Then the guy just hangs his whole position with g5, and you didn't take. It's like just trusting your opponent. But Warnocki's position was so strong, he didn't have to take the free pawn. And obviously with a4, it's not about a5. He's planning on a rook incursion. There it is. See, that comes next. Yeah, not a good structure for black. Bishop pair. It's just a really handicapped structure by black. Oh my god. I knew you were going to play rook a3, rook g3. That's just mean. That's just mean, man. I mean, you didn't even want his free pawn. Coach AH. Yeah, a4, a5. That's what we all expected originally when we saw a4. But I saw the rook left too. Of course. That was the real plan. Objectively, you should just take on g5. You know, you're winning a central pawn. You're gaining control of the center. This was cute, though. We ended up taking it anyway. White has everything. This is an impressive game. +7. Oh. Nice knights. You didn't want his knight. Yeah, that's free knight. It's over, obviously. Probably time pressure. Alright. The good practical move, trying to trade rooks. Now this is virtually mate, right? It's mate in 3. Mate in 5. He's just playing with his food now. Alright, 1-0, black resigned. Why would he resign now? That's kind of bizarre. A bizarre place to resign, isn't it? Oh, no, later. I'm sorry. Knight d8. Yeah. Sorry, he didn't resign. h3, bishop g5. Just a rook up. Nothing to see here, folks. That was a nice positional game. I just thought the opening you made a lot of mistakes. Funny, though. No blunders. Only 2 large mistakes. But the mistakes in the opening were significant. Not really. I mean, you were hunting that queen trade when you should have been trying to take advantage of his queen in the opening. Which was really weird. Is our hero Mr. Slowhand here? Has anybody seen Mr. Slowhand? Because I actually was supposed to do his game first. Welcome to everyone else. Percy Hepworth. Rest of you guys. I don't think I said hi to Percy. I was just not sure if Mr. Slowhand would be here to witness me analyze his game. He was first on the list. So I was kind of waiting, but we'll do it. Who knows? Maybe he's playing or something. Have a quick look at our Sunday Simul game. My e5 after queen e2. This was from the Sunday Simul. It was an interesting opening. It was improvisation. You totally forgot what the main lines for black are. Be nice if you could explain what you would play after queen e2. So his play wasn't objectively sound in the early opening phase. This was funny. Okay, I don't like doing my own games, but sometimes it's necessary. All right. So guys, I was white against Mr. Slowhand. Is this from the Simul? This was in the Simul. This wasn't on. I guess it was in the Simul on Sunday. Okay. Warnocki, thanks. 350 bits, sir. So I'm white here against Mr. Slowhand, and I play Queen E2, the Chigorin variation, and I have played this in real tournament games. Olivier Lucas, I didn't see that game, but if you want to, we can go over it together. I did not have time to analyze that, but if you want, we can include it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Olivier Lila. I'll put that on the list. We can go over that together. Queen E2. So if you're asking me what I would play, personally, I play the Sicilian, so I would probably gravitate toward playing C5. I think that's a good way to just transpose to a King's Indian attack. White will usually play G3, but we can transpose to a totally normal King's Indian attack, like G3, Knight C6, Knight F3, I don't know, maybe G6, Bishop G2. This is very standard, but White also has the option to play F4 with the idea that the pawn gets out of the way so the knight can develop behind it. So I think this is interesting. More interesting than the standard King's Indian attack for White. I would probably try to play that. But I do know, it's funny, I thought somewhere I saw B6 recommended. This does not have a good score, though, in the limited number of games here. Yeah, chess coach AH prefers bishop e7 and d5. Actually, he's right. This is a good line. Whoops, no. I mean, this is probably the French player's way of playing. That's like the true style for a French defense player. You're still going to play d5. You're also going to get King's Indian attack type lines. Transpositions to King's Indian attack type lines. White will revert back to G3 and Knight F3 and all that, So like this. You have to be willing to like that kind of position. George Meyer. Kinderman versus George Meyer 2018. George Meyer is a big French player, so an example of what a typical French player might do. I agree. Bishop e7 is fine. I don't know where I saw this recommended. I mean, clearly, like, bishop a6 is something you could toy with. In and of itself, not really dangerous, though. I don't know if I've actually seen this recommended somewhere, or I'm just making that up. Maybe I'm confusing lines of the King's Indian attack with the Queen e2 French. There's some lines in normal King's Indian attack lines where black will later play b6 and bishop a6 to attack the queen on e2. Probably I'm mixing them up. You like the Mets and the Red Sox? Yeah. Well, it's okay. A lot of people play the French and the Sicilian. It's a good mix. I wonder why black's score is so bad after b6, though. Notable. White's score here with knight f3 is, like, ridiculous. I mean, that's just not enough games to be statistically... I guess it's just not a statistically relevant sample size. I mean, nobody who's in probability and statistics is going to take this seriously. You probably need, like, hundreds of games for there to be, like, a strategic or a statistical meaning in this. It's just... I don't know. Anyway, I think that bishop e7 is a good bet. c5 is a good bet, and that's about it. If you really want to be weird, you could play like knight c6 or something. All right. But he played e5. This isn't that bad, actually. It's not that bad. It's not like it's a blunder or something. Just supposedly leaves white with some advantage according to the engine. So I tried to play f4. It seems like the logical thing to do. But I've never actually studied this. I just knew that this is possible. And I never... Maybe I played this once in my life in a blitz game. I certainly never had the position after pawn takes pawn. This is funny, though. Like, I didn't plan this out. Normally in the King's Gambit, you would play knight f3 first. But I guess somehow I felt like, you know, g5, g4 has more effect. It might even have more effect than it normally would. Because any sort of g5, g4 would come with g takes f attacking my queen on e2. Somehow I felt like that might be relevant. So I just played d4. The other thing I thought about was that, unlike normal lines of the King's Gambit, I have the ability to move my king to d1. I think in the back of my mind, I looked at king d1, and then I bailed when he played queen h4 check here. That's funny, there's an actual game with king d1 from Finland, 2011. I think over the board, during the simul, over the simul, the computer, when I first played f4, it probably was in my mind, then I forgot I could play king d1. King d1 is definitely a move. I would think it would be kind of fun. This guy in Westerinen had a draw. How this ends up in a draw, but it can always happen. So I chickened out after d4, queen h4 check, and played queen f2. I mean, I never imagined that this could be bad for white. My king is in the center. I have a good chance to get my pawn back. Bartsai Laszlo was a good player. There's a game from 1997, the end of his career. When I came to Hungary in 1996, 97, 98, I remember Bartsai Laszlo, he was like a declining grandmaster. He still played a handful of grandmaster tournaments in Hungary while I was here. He was like on his last stand. He died shortly after that. It was 2385, 1997. Not to be confused with Barca. There's a Hungarian grandmaster who's quite famous named Barca, without the Y, and this is Bartsai Laszlo, so they're different players. Queen takes f2 check, king takes f2, and now g5. It's funny, Arsenal, you just mentioned Duda. There was the tournament, the Grand Prix in Germany, in Hamburg, where he made it to the final against Grishuk, and he did lose that final against Grishuk, but I will say he played a great game. One of the rapid games I noticed against Grishuk, it was an English opening. It was just a masterpiece by Duda. So he has a lot of talent. Yeah, I agree. So after king takes f2, g5 was played by this player who I do not know, an older Hungarian master apparently. That's quite a strong rating, 2410. I never heard of this guy. G5 was like what I expected, but out of the blue came d5. I guess my biggest fear was like a knight coming in to f6 and e4 or g4 somehow. And I mean, I usually feel very confident in endgames. I felt like I'll probably regain my pawn. My king can actually be a good thing. When he played this move, my first intention was to take the pawn. And then at the last minute, I changed my mind. I mean, David Bronstein would have loved this type of position. Really irrational. Pawn takes d5. Let's say I assume he'll play knight f6. And I saw these possibilities, and I started to think, hey, maybe I don't want my king, you know, in a position where it's going to open up a lot. But actually, I don't really see anything, you know. If you think about this position, I mean, just take on d5, something like bishop d2 or bishop g3, and should be a little bit better for white. But here, I didn't have any clue how bad things would get after e5. My intention was to more or less like play against knight f6. I wanted to restrict him from having knight f6 and knight e4, knight f6, knight g4 attacking my king. I had no clue how bad a mistake this was. e5 and then c5. And it's basically very thematic break. At this point, I don't know. I tried to maintain my center, but it looks like it's too little too late. Too little too late. What are these donation notifications? To Bill Gates? All right. So I played c3 here. I guess it's too slow. I just need to mobilize my pieces. I thought I could maintain the center. g5. And at this point, okay, I'm down a pawn. Thematic h4. The only move to break up those pawns. Again, I thought everything's under control. To Bill Gates Open. One moment, guys. Be right there. Got to answer a message. Answer a message. Just a second. What am I doing? So I really was naive here, thinking like everything was completely okay, everything's safe, and I'm not in any really grave danger. But you'll see how quickly this goes downhill for white. It's very striking. I'm not even really sure what I did wrong. You know, I mean, I guess e5. Basically, everything can be blamed on e5, which is too slow. I don't really have what else to say. To be honest, you know, he's asking me to improve his opening. This is my big mistake. Like d5, I have to take the pawn there. You know, that's really all we can say that I can think of that would have made a huge difference. Take the pawn on d5. Because after this h4, f6, all of a sudden, I mean, this f6 move is really weird too. It didn't scare me because it's not a developing move of any sort. I'm not behind in development. He has no pieces developed. All of his pieces are on the back rank here. You know, why should I feel any sort of fear? You know, so it just snuck up on me. The next move was just a horrific blunder. I just didn't feel any sense of danger because basically he had no pieces developed. And I just assumed everything would fall into place. But watch how fast this goes bad. The best move is h takes g. If I play h takes g and he plays f takes g, he gives me a protected pass pawn on e5. Now, how am I going to get these pawns? I mean, knight f3, bishop e7. I don't see how I can win his pawns. I was very concerned. There's no way to undermine those pawns. G3 isn't something I really want to do with my king on f2 necessarily. It's possible. You might even be able to play G3. You might even be able to play this, but it's a little bit dicey to walk the king out to G3. At the end of the day, maybe this pawn's falling. Maybe he has to play G4, and then I have some good chances. I have threats. Even like knight H4, knight G6 maybe. But unfortunately, I have to move really fast in these simultaneous. I just played knight f3 sort of instinctively as if it was a normal king's gambit. Like I could play knight h2 or knight g1 or, you know, like in those lines of the normal king's gambit with knight f3. This is amazing how bad it goes now. I don't know where I should even put my knight. Probably on g1. At this point, I played knight e1 to head for d3. I don't know. Look how fast this falls apart. At this point, I realized I was playing like Bent Larsen. Only Larsen could like have that pawn structure after 15 moves or something. It was only now that I realized I was clearly worse. Look, Ma, no pawn moves. Unbelievable. Both sides, all the pieces are on the back two ranks. So I don't have a choice. I have to take. And then this move, which was a stunner. It looks anti-positional, inflexible. He's just surrendering his pawn on f4. This is an amazing move. It stymies my knight. It stymies my bishop on f1. I just thought, oh, that's giving a big hole. It gives me a big hole for my pieces at d4, but there's no way to get anything there. It takes too long. Knight c2, knight d4. I have to take this pawn. And then suddenly my king is in danger on the f-file. He has no pieces developed. Knight c6. Maybe here I could salvage the game somehow. I was actually expecting he was going to castle queenside. That would be the most expedient. But he castles kingside, attacking my king. Another good point is, like, this is very tempting. I think that many people would have played bishop c5 check, but that's probably a serious mistake. You know, I mean, even just trading this bishop probably reduces his attacking chances dramatically. Easily the most tempting move in the world, bishop c5 check, is probably a serious mistake. Well, I tried to do king g2, you know, g3 and king g2, but it was too late. After bishop g7. I guess here I should have played g3. g3 now, it's already -2, -1.5. Yeah, now I'm trying to hang on to my material, but this is insane. It's like lost. Maybe king g1 at this point I should play. Just to try to stay alive. I played rook e1 to hold the pawn. It's pointless. Now it's just lost. I wonder if he even needs... Yeah, he needs bishop e6. Secure this. I can't even play king e3 because of bishop h6. And the whole position just fell apart. So resignation is... It's -7. But it's amazing what happened in 10 moves. I mean, he literally had no pieces developed. We have this after 11 moves. And then we have this after to 11 more moves, and it's all over. But check out his game. 0 inaccuracies, 0 mistakes, 0 blunders, and 16 cent pawn loss. I don't think I've ever seen anybody play a 0-0-0 game in a King's Gambit in my life. Like, anybody. Because normally when you play an opening like the King's Gambit, you're increasing the complications of the game, and it makes it harder and harder to play perfect inaccuracy, perfect game with no inaccuracies. I mean, technically it wasn't a King's Gambit because it was e4, e6, queen e2, e5, f4, or whatever, but it was effectively a Queen's Gambit or King's Gambit, and I'd never seen anybody play that kind of perfect game before in this type of weird position. FM Spielman. Lieutenant Colonel Vidman, to you, Percy Hepworth. All right. Let's go onward. That was quite a game. And he's showing off a little bit with that victory there. The only recommendations I can give him are, to play, like we said, bishop e7 or c5 on move 2. Blubix, what's up? Good morning. Good morning. It's not morning. Mr. Blubby. All right, guys. So we did slow hands, Warnacki, save a dog. Save a dog is up. Would you please review my game versus Farzad Abdi? I thought we already did that. You have a new one? You have a new one against the same opponent that we saw once before. I'm confused. Oh yeah, we're not at the end of the list. Here, number 10. So Save a Dog had played this opponent once before. Oh my dog. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Thank you to Warnacki for donating 350 bits. Also to all of you, Mr. Slohan, Hartweiss and Nudel, Jim, Alms on Twitch, Warnacki, WJ Loof, Merle Dixon, HTFP. Thank you guys for all donating. And also for resubscribing. Arsenal fan resubscribed. Cheers for that. So this is Save Dog's getting some good opponents at his local chess club. He is continuously getting a chance to play with masters. That's not bad. You're getting some good experience playing up. So this opponent that Save a Dog is playing here, he's like 2300 USCF. I would assume he'd be like in the 2200s ish FIDE rating. Let's take a look what Save a Dog does. Knight f3. He was playing c4. Save a Dog, when did you stop playing the English on move 1? g6, c4. Bishop g7, d4, d6. Uh-oh, he's playing the system. He's playing the system. The Slaggy system. Bishop g5. Have you played this before? I'm curious. I find that it works pretty well at all levels up until about... I mean, even grandmasters don't often have their concept really set with black. I think at some point people at least don't play it really badly with black. He played c6. This move I like if it's paired with a6 and b5. That is a plan that I've used with black, actually. One of the more interesting systems. I've had both colors in this line. So I've literally played this move myself. But I've seen a lot of people do weird stuff. Like, the most common one is they put their queen on a5 and play like bishop g4. It's like some weird attempt to win a piece. No, this has nothing to do with the 150 attack, and that's something completely different. Bishop g5. Yeah, Arsenal fan. I've played that sort of thing in like Blitz, and you'll find like a handful of games. But it's not the 150 attack. You've like played c4. You don't have any kind of attack like of that magnitude with white. It's just a kind of weird move. No, queen d2 is not really a big deal. The fact that white has played c4 makes castling queenside a lot more dangerous for white and stuff like that. So it's not a big deal. Believe me, I've tried everything. I've played queen c1. I've literally messed around with every feasible move, probably, in this position. So c6, bishop e2 is best. Yeah, now a6 and b5. And that's reflected here in the statistics, interestingly. Knight on bd7, I once beat Eugene Perelstein in this with white. For some reason, I feel like it's better for black to play without knight on bd7. It's better for black to just go ahead and play e6 and b5. And then later he can play knight bd7 when it comes time. But that's really the best plan for black, to go for this b5 break as soon as possible. To be perfectly fair, it's not that great a system for black. It's just a way of making the game kind of weird and give black something to distract white from controlling the game. I don't think it's that great of a system. Probably the best for black, objectively, is c5. Black should play a straight up Benoni system. The one question that remains is maybe whether or not to play h6. Technically, this might be a good inclusion, like h6, bishop h4, and then c5. This is recommended by a King's Indian book, I remember, by Graham Burgess, I think, years ago. King's Indian for the attacking player, something like that. Technically the best for black, to do h6 first. I have this position against Toth Ervin 2 years ago. I was black. No, it was different. I didn't do h6 right away. I remember that. I did this. We had a game like c5, bishop e2, bishop f5. It was something like that. But h6 I think is technically considered the best. Alright, c6 here, knight on bd7. Normally you would castle first. For save a dog, but I don't think there's anything wrong with queen c2. It's a normal move. I remember I had a game with black against what's his name? Nadanian. Where Nadanian played knight d2 really early against me. I wouldn't have played this exact move order for black, though. I wouldn't have played knight bd7. Queen c2 is okay, and now a6. And it looks like he's sort of on the right track, but you played b4. Theoretical novelty. I mean, obviously, you know, this looks kind of dangerous, this diagonal. Yeah, a5 is not so good here. More of a traditional King's Indian move, Warnacki. But I would generally not play b4 quite so early. Save a dog. It might not be a bad move, but what I've generally done and seen done is like castles, and when he plays b5, we'll play like knight d2. Bruja Jacobian plays sometimes with white too. He's a student of Nadanian. They would both play the system with white. My first game with Brujan was black and a King's Indian. I played it with both colors. a3, this is the normal. Also, believe it or not, I have a game against that guy. I had a blitz game with Sasha Kiran on Internet Chess Club. It's funny, there's a game here from 2000. I distinctly remember playing Sasha Kiran, a blitz game. We had this exact line. It was a draw after some complicated play. So obviously he's still playing the same system. That was maybe like 5 years ago. But a3 is the normal reaction. Though we would prefer to have like knight d2 and knight takes c4. That's the way Nadanian played and Brusian against me. We'd really rather have the knight capture that pawn there. But b4, it looks kind of early. But on the other hand, I'm not sure there's anything that black can really do. b5. Yeah, c5. I don't think c5 is going to work, is it? It doesn't make sense to play it in 2 moves. Not really impressing me here. I mean, truthfully, like, Savadog's move b4 may not be a bad move. Let's see what the Arsenal says. The new name for Stockfish is the Arsenal. I don't know what you're talking about, Arsenal fan. You're just assuming white plays d5 or something, but he doesn't have to do that. White can just play cd, ed, and just sit there and castle or something. I mean, white doesn't have to play d5, dude. He just plays like b takes c, d takes c, and castle. White should be better here. I mean, I'm not going to play this move unless I need to, you know. White's just better here. It's not a Benoni. No, c5 doesn't make sense. Not when you played c6 already. If he was going to play c5, he should have played c5 before. This is a different position. So e5, castles. This is fine. There's actually a couple games. Rook e8. Yeah, and then there's a question about what to do. Like, you can sometimes exchange pawns on e5. But it's not necessary. The one thing that Savadog I'm worried about is that rook getting exploited on a long diagonal somehow. So you can play rook a d1, but then the other rook is like, well, what am I doing with that? We're hoping that black plays e4, so he overextends the center. A strong player is not going to do that. This guy played against some guy, Gutmann, not the real Gutmann. Rook f d1, Lev Gutmann. Who these guys are, I don't know. Rook f d1. So you actually played rook a d1. Interesting. That's the engine's #1 move. And then queen c7. You transpose to Jose Garcia Gonzalez. Gonzalez, my friend. Gonzalez Garcia against Damian Lemos, who's now a GM, from 2003. That's funny. Jose just played d takes e5. Standard oil. D takes e5, d takes e5, c5, followed by knight d2, knight c4. Basically, I've played a lot of games like this. This looks very, very standard. I would think this move would have been really strong. The queen is notoriously bad on c7. It's almost always bad. In the King's Indian defense, the queen doesn't go to c7. It goes to c7 in the old Indian defense. In the King's Indian, it does not go to c7. You actually played the perfect opening for this opponent. He really doesn't quite know what he's doing, and most people don't. You know, I find even 2300s don't have a clue. So you played a4. This is a little too much. Basically, the problem with c6 is that it weakens the d6 square, Savadog. So what we're normally trying to do is get a knight in there, either through e4 or c4 into d6. I never would have thought about a4. Just kind of randomly grabbing space on the queen side. So, like what Jose did here is correct. You take that. One thing that I get sometimes is they take with a knight. And that will change the game. Trading that piece might actually be... That might actually be a better move for black here. Normally this recapture is a mistake because it doesn't leave black with a strong central pawn and the d6 pawn is backwards. But in this particular position, like knight d4, you could play, I guess. Have a slight advantage. If c5... That doesn't look quite right for black, although maybe. B takes c. How does black recapture? D takes c. This is probably good anyway. Knight b3, and if bishop f5, you just play e4. Even this looks good. You're still better. So, alright, so Lema should have probably tried knight takes e5. Let's see how this went. d5, knight d2, knight f8, c5, a5, bishop takes f6. This is just like a strong player against an inexperienced player. I've played this a million times. And then there, and then there, and then there. And Jose's just clearly better with access to the d6 square. So, all right. This is weird. A4. Never ever you make moves like knight f8 with tension in the center in the King's Indian. It looks like c5 almost blows him away in this position. What the heck is going on? I mean, how can he do this? Does this move just almost knock him out? If he plays c5 here, what's he gonna do? Some sort of bishop f5? That's unclear, but I mean, you could even play e4 maybe. Bishop f5 is weird. I was even thinking you might be able to play this move. Apparently it doesn't work tactically. Alright. Oh, this is normally the move you're looking for. Save a dog. A4 is just not necessary. You're not like going to play b5 or something. That was a key loss of time. Unnecessary move. In fact, you need that pawn to like support the b pawn the way that Jose did, you know. So bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, knight e4 here, c5. So now this move might work. Bishop f5 naturally. Now you could play a5 and still like you're probably fine in this position. Ironically, white's probably a little better here. One thing we want to be mindful of, bishop takes e4, queen e4, a5, breaking up your structure. Yeah, this move basically... What are you going to do if he does this? I guess you win the e5 pawn. That alone, though, would be enough to convince me not to do this. a5. Yeah, no, queen c4 is very weird. He was obviously uncomfortable with this pin, and I understand that. Actually, there's a lot of moves in this position. Maybe not a lot. I mean, knight fd2. Is there time to play this? See? That move is a pain, you know? The best move is a5, according to the engine. It's going to be hard to break through, though. I mean, the truth is that that really might, you know, lock it up too much to the point where it's impossible for white to win. It's only a draw or something. Queen c4. Now he could play a5 at some point. Now, do you have queen c3 here? Yeah, and so you're on this pawn. And then it just gets kind of random. There goes your structure. That's why it's so important not to play a4. You could play a3 now. You could just maintain your whole position. So instead he has to lunge forward b5. Here. Nice. So white's clearly better anyway. Just knight d6. This guy is not going to last against Jose Gonzalez Garcia here, I guarantee you. Jose wins this position. It turns out that like a4 and b5 might even be good now. Maybe this is like extra space. You could just play like knight d6 and be better here. It may not be that easy to break through though. You know, maybe it's still defensible for black. Wow. Going for long-term space. Nice. Uh-oh. We can't maintain the d6 square. Looking for tactics. I don't see anything. That was a fail. Oh no. It was a fail. What if you were to just play like bishop c4? Are you going to lose something? The c5 pawn? Just looking for the white squares. Isn't this just winning? Strategically? I mean, this is an unbelievable opportunity. You can't play the King's Indian with your queen on c7 and b8 like this. Maybe b8 is better than c7. So knight d6 is too early. You understand your mistake. There's no tactic. I mean, I'm looking for everything here. Maybe this. It's not sound. Bishop c4. I mean, bishop c4 almost works. Problem is he has king f7 after bishop takes d6, bishop takes e6, knight takes e6, queen c4, king f7. There's just nothing there. Well, yeah, I mean, like doubling rooks first. Right. Like Lucas says, doubling rooks. You know, in a vacuum, if you could just go here and here. Looks pretty strong, honestly. I mean, what's he gonna do? Like rook d8, and now you just own the file? Take care, man. This looks very, very strong. I mean, typically... Yeah, the computer says bishop c4. You're just all over him. That's a shame Savadog didn't win. Well, I don't know if he won. I'm assuming he didn't win after knight d6. It was not a good King's Indian for black. DJ Chess is rating with a party of 2. Thanks for rating. Yeah, this is a pity. Now white's pawn on c5 could even become... It could become weak. Oh my god. Do we have knight takes e5, some sort of tactic? Like pawn takes, knight d6, bishop d6, pawn d6. What's your idea here? To hang on with knight b3. this is not really what we wanted. Now black has the powerful center. The knight on f8 looks like it even makes sense now. So white is on the defensive. The a pawn is weak. Seems like this player is a pretty good defender. I never actually played him in a tournament game. I think I played him in Blitz. Queen d7, rook d7, rook c6, king f7, rook fc1, b8, knight e1. Not easy to hold it. You're starting to fall apart. Overzealousness from white. He just played a little bit too quickly. He had a great position, honestly. White had everything he could ask for in this game. Just a little bit not in sync. You know, it just was, it was horrendous for black, actually. He played about as bad as you can play. What I expect most people to play. They don't know what they're doing against bishop g5. Very typical to see a 2300 player just sort of clueless against the system. They rarely encounter anyone who's strong enough, like me, who plays the system, to play it really well. But he was lucky, you know. Save a Dog just played the knight d6 too early. But this looks like it's just losing a pawn now. You just have no compensation. In fact, his king is just closer to the center in this endgame. You got no real way of penetrating. You actually have back rank problems. So it's probably just lost for white. No way to defend. Yeah, no, but maybe not. Maybe not. Now the a-pawns come off. It's suddenly a different story. So this is the idea. What if he takes there? Same thing. You know, if you could get the queenside pawns off, I mean, this is now a technical endgame. Very, very tough one. First thing is you probably don't want to trade rooks. Knight endgame like this is a total disaster. 5 against 4. It would be lost more than it's drawn, I'm sure. Mostly, like, easy to lose. But with the rooks on the board, there's still some hope for white. Rooks give us drawing chances. Where's our knight going? Yeah, I mean, I would instantly trade those pawns. Why aren't you trading pawns here? I mean, I'm not sure you should have allowed him to fix that pawn on g4, but we could... I don't want to spend the whole, like, you know, stream on this one game. Basically, you want to trade all the pawns you can trade. Just trade. Just trade everything you can trade. That's all you can do. Try to trade it off. I mean, if you're afraid of getting mated with him having, like, knight f3 or something, I think this is a mistake not to trade pawns. You're thinking about his h-pawn becoming a weakness. If you can calculate, that's possible. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what would happen if you had traded pawns, you know, objectively. If the result would have been different or not. Rook b1, king d7, knight b4, king d6. This path for the knight was bad, you know. In the first place, I mean, maybe you should have gone here. Because the way it was, there was no way to, like, get your knight out of there. It was, like, stuck inside his position. This doesn't look easy either, but I guess rook a2. I mean, even worst case scenario, the knight in game is not that easy for black to win, but I'd like to keep the rooks on the board. I'm definitely trading pawns. And then rescuing my knight. But how can you rescue it? And not so easy to get it out of there now. It's sort of half stuck on c6. Yeah, I mean, you really must exchange pawns now. Doesn't look easy to save this, though. Check. The knight got in there on f3. We go back to that position where he has knight g5. If you play hg, hg, rook check, king e7. I mean, what the heck is going on here? HCFP, thanks. No, but seriously, let's go one more move. Okay, he's got mating threats now. Knight f3, rook a1, rook g1. This is going to be popping up. There are going to be mating nets. You could even sack an exchange in some positions. Where does he go here? King e7. Computer doesn't even think this is winning. Like h4 is like the losing move. So after hg, hg, rook b6 check, king e7, where does he go? See, it's like king e7, knight b4, and then it's hard to protect this pawn. Rook a5, rook a5, knight c6 check. Nah, it's a pity. Like you weren't even losing. I mean, it's not fun, but I don't know. No, it's really interesting. Like I thought you would be in trouble, but even here it looks like you're holding on. Okay, wow. All right, Asturbate's up. But that's a good game. You have a winning position against the master. A second time against that guy. You had a winning position against him, which is pretty impressive. Thursday commentary stream game submission. This is from Asturbate. It's a Spielman Indian. FM Spielman. Mating nuts. All right. This is the right game? Asturbate, is this the right game? Similar to the other game I've seen recently from Asturbate. d4, c5, knight f3. Oh, you played d4, c5, Asturbate. Cool. The old Benoni. Knight f3 is already a mistake. This allows black to equalize immediately. It's funny that some legitimate players have played this. Negi. C takes d4, Asturbate. Always play c takes d4. And then you just play d5 and you've equalized. It's the Marshall defense with tempo down, but we'll take it. We have a center and white doesn't. This is just as easy. I mean, black is slightly better now. His opponent was 2,300 US, Olivier Lucas. That guy. Probably around 2,200 FIDE. 22, 25. I think there's about a 75 point, 50 to 75 point differential between USCF ratings and FIDE. Yeah, but didn't really know what he was doing in the opening. This is just the best, Asturbate. Always destroy the center. What does your move seek to do? What does c5 seek to do? It seeks to destroy the enemy center. You're undermining the enemy center. Then he says, okay, go ahead and destroy my center, and you don't do it. That's all right. You're hoping for d5. Asturbate wants him to play d5. So he plays knight f6. White still doesn't oblige. He plays e3, supporting the center now. I mean, that's why like it's better for him. You know, he'd be better off playing e3. e3 is a much better move than knight f3 for white, even though it looks kind of passive. This allows white to recapture with the pawn and have a pawn center, you know. So this is clearly superior. Now, what do we do? Now you played c takes d4, and now he plays knight takes d4. Yeah, that's lame. So e takes d4 is the only move. I mean, I guess you could play queen takes d4 and pretend you're playing the Scandinavian or something. But this is just like, why bother playing e3, really, if you're not going to take with the pawn? Wow, nice move, aggressive, e5. And this is not a threat because of queen a5 check, Asterbate. You could try to lure him in with bishop e7. Free pawn. You didn't come up with that. You know they would take the free pawn here. I bet the computer will argue for like e4. I wouldn't be surprised if Stockfish says e4. It looks like a good game. You could just go, even though this looks like you're overextending a little. This is actually like a reversed Queen's Gambit accepted. This is a really good position for black. Excellent space advantage. So your pawn is a little backward, it doesn't matter. Your space advantage totally compensates for this pawn being a little bit overextended on e4. But anyway, there are lots of good moves for black here. The only move that's not good is d5 because he could really take your pawn now. You know, that's the one thing we shouldn't do. So Asterbate played knight c6, and now knight on bd2. Hideously passive. d5, great move. And now white is basically playing a bad Queen's Gambit accepted with no space. Looks like he should try c4. Maybe bishop b5. Fighting for the center. Fighting for control of e5. Or c4, fighting for control of the center. The white squares. If white continues to play moves like this that don't fight for the center, he's going to have a huge problem. I'm proud of you, Asterbate, for not playing for like cheap shots or something here. You know, the Morphe sacrifice doesn't quite work. This is not going to work. I mean, Asterbate, if you really if you wanted to play like a mindless zombie, you could play like e4, knight d4, h5. I mean, this would be fun. You could threaten to play bishop takes h2 check. Maybe for next time. The mate with the queen is way too subtle, man. You got to go for the Greek gift type sacrifice here. This. And this. That looks pretty powerful. I doubt white can defend this position. This happens sometimes against weird sort of defenses. This looks like it's winning. So you but you could have tried this. You played correctly. Bishop d6. Castle, castle, and then passive. I mean, I don't know how many times I've had this kind of position with white. You would be white and he would be black in a passive kind of Queen's Gambit Slav, semi-Slav gone wrong. Now Asterbate getting more and more positional, playing the whole board. a5. Computer gave it a dubious. I think that's a little cruel. I don't think that a5 is really a dubious move. It's pretty logical. He's restricting white. He's gaining space with his rook. Certainly one of the top 5 moves, I would say. Rook e8, queen e7. a5 is not a bad move. Now you might just go a4. But on the other hand, you don't have to. Maybe a4 is pushing the envelope too much. The normal thing to do is just push and then knight e5. I like this. Just avoid exchanges and start migrating your pieces toward the king side. Then usually they'll panic with something like f4 and destroy their own position. Just don't let them exchange pieces. e4, knight d4, knight here. You have threats of knight g4. The next move is his first mistake. This is not necessary, because your bishop already has a good diagonal. There it is. It's already there. It has a great diagonal. Just how to make it work, you know. Let's see what the Stockfish says. The Arsenal bot. h6. Double exclam. h6. No. e4. And then your move, bishop b8. That makes complete sense. It's a pity the rook can't join in the fun along the third rank because of the bishop on e2. But that'd be kind of funny. Can you imagine in some variation, just hypothetically? It would be funny if you could play rook a6 in some lines. How would that work? You know, like take rook a6, bishop takes a6, bishop takes h2 check, king takes h2, knight g4 check, king g1, queen h4. I never actually employed that idea. You know, the rook a6 fake out. But it's funny, it would decoy the only defender away from the Greek gift sacrifice, and the knight g4 would suddenly work. No, h6 is a stupid move. Stockfish realized its mistake there. This actually might even work. Alright, so b6 is bad. I don't know what you're doing with that. It's like positional piece exchange with bishop a6. This is hideous. The worst move I've ever seen, maybe. That might be the worst mistake I've ever seen, positionally. Putting a knight on a square where it has nowhere to go, like literally, it has no purpose and can be attacked by a4. Wow. It's a forward move for white, like, wow. Yeah, classic battery. He just let you execute. A little bonus that the queen is attacked now. This is a little lopsided, Acerbate. You're going to have to start digging a little deeper in your hoard of crushing victories. I know that you like to win these crush mating games, but this one was too easy. White played very weakly. We're going to make you submit tougher games next time. No more wipeouts. Though, it was good positional chess. You know, actually, had he not played really ridiculous moves, I think you just would have outplayed him. Even this. I'm like literally joking about it, but like even this move, like theoretically, that's probably not really a bad move. I wouldn't want to trade pieces here, though. I don't know why you played b6. Maybe that's what I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand what motivated you to play b6 here. Like, to put your bishop on b7? Because it seems like a nice diagonal? This is a great piece. Developed from its original square. The only question is the rook. I actually liked a5, though. I think a5 is fine. It's also probably objectively unnecessary. You can just play e4 first. This is the standard thing to do. I would just go here. Another plan is queen e7 and queen e5. Very, very commonly I use that. This will force him to weaken his king side. And this exchange of pieces strengthens your center. So, very strong attacking chances for black here. Right? He'll have to play g3. And then it's going to be h5, h4. Queen e5, bishop h3. g6, king g7, rook h8. And it's a mating attack with the King's Indian style attack for black. You plan cheapos. He's the #1 cheapo planner. Yeah. This opponent was too weak for you, though. Find you better competition. All right, Mr. Coffee submitted a game. Guys, tomorrow, I just want to remind everybody, tomorrow we have Fast Blitz 5+3 open challenges. Get the echo chamber going again. Mr. Coffee. Where the heck is Mr. Coffee? There he is. Mr. Coffee's not in the house. He's at work, right? Can you do the second game instead? Played a National Master. Oh. This is his old one. Crap. But maybe I should just do that, because I was supposed to do the second one, and we never did. Is that what Mr. Coffee intended? I forgot to do the right game last time. So we'll see if we get it right this time. 1 hour ago. Yeah, I meant to do this Mr. Coffee last time. I'm sorry. So last time he asked me to do this game and I did the wrong one. Never listen. Especially don't listen to Mr. Coffee. Alright. D4, D5, Knight F3. And Mr. Coffee has the Kali system. Plays with white. It's a little passive, but I encouraged him to play B3. Rather than the traditional sort of like Bishop D3, C3, Knight on BD2. I mean, I like this. This is an unusual move order, though. I'm wondering, what's up with Bishop D3? Savely Bologov. Bologov, I called him. Golubov. I played Knight H6, E4, Knight H6 against that guy in a rapid game. Freaked him out. He was a kid. No, let's see. Mr. Coffee, I guess this is technically the right move order. B3. Knight C6. Bishop B2. I think I had this against Josh Whiteskin once. Somehow I had something similar. Bishop G4. We're basically playing a Tartikover Queen's Gambit with colors reversed. That's all this is. Here, I don't know if it's better to play castles or Knight on BD2. The engine likes castles better. But what's the real difference? Why is castles necessarily better than the Knight on BD2? Okay, I'm not a huge fan of the system. I don't think that white can really get any advantage out of the opening. But anyway, it's a system. It's safe. It's solid. White should be equal. You could just play chess from an equal position. I'm just trying to understand objectively what's the difference between Knight on BD2 and castles for white here. Does anybody have any theories about why Knight D2 might be less good than castles? Humpy Konaru. Not a good score against her. I think I'm 0 for 2. All right, knight on bd2, bishop d6, castles, rook c8, totally normal move. 1989 Asian Zonal Tournament, Ricardo de Guzman against Ye Ranguang. Mr. Coffee dramatically playing c4. What else is he supposed to do? You can play h3, which doesn't really do anything. The one thing you can play, Mr. Coffee, is knight e5 at some point. Yeah, you could take on c5. Like, that's something I might be inclined to do if I were black more than white. But yeah, you can take on c5 and just kind of liquidate everything. I mean, if you're playing for a draw, this is probably not a bad way to play Warnaki. Honestly, if you're playing like a higher rated player and you just want to... You don't want your bishop to get restricted. Actually, when I'm white in the Tartakover Queen's Gambit, it makes me angry when people play d takes c4. I mean, basically, my strategy normally is to saddle white with a bad bishop on b2. So what I'll normally do is exchange whatever. I would typically try to exchange on d4. You know, in this kind of position, if I could get this, stick white with the bad bishop that's hemmed in. So sometimes it's frustrating. c4 is a very aggressive move by Mr. Coffee. Now things get interesting, because we can take back with the knight or the pawn. Knight takes is more solid. Pawn takes is more aggressive. Actually, you could even play knight pawn takes c5, come to think of it, couldn't you? If you really wanted to draw. If you just wanted to maintain an equal position against a high-rated opponent or something. You could basically force an equal position with pawn takes c5. That's what Warnaki said. But I think we have nothing to fear, Warnaki. Like, if this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this. It's very exciting. But there's really no risk for white in any of these variations. The only risk comes if we play this move. Then we play a hanging pawn structure, which is theoretically, you know, worsening our pawn structure. But it is worsening it toward the center. So we now have 4 pawns. Uwe calls in the center. So we have a preponderance of pawns in the center. This isn't necessarily a bad thing for white. Now, in this type of structure, the problem is those pawns become like liabilities oftentimes. Ingle 1337 subscribed with Twitch Prime. Thank you. This is not really Mr. Coffee's thing, but I mean, you can oftentimes make dynamic pawn sacrifices like d5. Yeah, you have 3 pawn islands now. Technically, your pawn structure is worse, but you have more dynamic possibilities of those pawns. Here is his favorite structure, really. 2 weeks ago, I lost playing a hanging pawn structure. I lost my hanging pawn in the center at d4. I was black. It was d5, but... yeah, it's a lot of work to make sure, you know, you can keep those pawns protected. Anyway, that's a more aggressive way to play. Mr. Coffee plays solid. And he just gave up his bishop there on f3. I'm actually kind of surprised by bishop e7, but I guess I shouldn't be. I was expecting black to take here. I guess he has a problem, though. If bishop takes d4, bishop d4, queen d4, both these pawns are hanging. Black's likely going to drop one of those pawns, isn't he? Pretty difficult to avoid it. But I mean, in all fairness, like, can you or anybody understand this exchange on f3? I don't see how that move really makes sense. What does black benefit by giving up his bishop for the knight on f3? I just don't see how this exchange was beneficial for black. Excuse me. Don't see what he gained by that. So Mr. Coffee can just take on c5. I mean, I think this is slightly better for white. D takes c5, bishop takes c5. I may make him waste time, you know. I guess it's very equal, but you have some microscopic edge here. Queen e2, queen e7, rook d1, castles. He plays this, black takes on d4. So rook d1. Can we play rook d1? I don't know. I think Mr. Coffee just plays this, and it's much more economic this way. I mean, dude, you couldn't ask for better bishops in a position. I mean, white has to be slightly better here. Both your bishops are like maximum. What's up, Yellow Dragoon? What's been going on? The FIDE Master. We're gonna have the same title soon. You're probably going to go ahead of me. I'm gonna get demoted to FIDE Master, and you can progress up to International Master. I'm back to Europe. What are you up to yourself? School. I think that he should just take on c5. This is worse. You know, queen e2 here. So there is an interesting possibility, though, of like trying to pin the pawn with rook d1, or one of the rooks to d1. Which one? Yeah, no, life, it's hard to juggle many things. I agree. Yeah, it's more to life than just chess. You got to try to do everything well. What's up here? Let's see what the Oracle says. I'm curious. The Oracle agrees with Mr. Coffee. Bishop takes c6. But I think this is pretty cool. Rook d1, a little bit more dynamic. WJ Loof. I didn't even know that WJ Loof was here. Bishop takes c6. Rook takes c6. Bishop takes d4. Castles. Rook fd1. Now we got nothing now. Too little, too late. Mr. Coffee has to go for more dynamic. The more dynamic rook d1. He ended up trading off this really raging bishop on f3 for really very little. Now the position is just too equal. White has a totally microscopic advantage. What if you take the pawn? Bishop takes a7. Can we try this? Ivanchuk would take the pawn. He's not afraid. There is something concrete. b6, queen c7, and trap the bishop on a7. That's interesting. So Mr. Coffee sets it up with this move. Black can play queen b8, maybe. Then bishop e5. It's going to be funny if black has to play queen a8. Queen a8 might actually not be that bad if black can play b6 and then fianchetto his queen on the long diagonal. Wow, Mr. Coffee, the one flaw with Mr. Coffee's play is that he's probably a little too solid. In this case, particularly. And he has just the tiniest advantage now. Anonymous gifter. We don't know who the anonymous gifter is. I honestly don't know. I know it's not me. That's all I know. I'm not as generous as the anonymous gifter. On caffeine, likes Mr. Coffee. Dude, Mr. Coffee with H3. How strong is your opponent? Mr. Coffee's playing like he's playing a GM or something. H3 is like a move I would like make that against Carlsen. Like, I'm going to be super careful. We're playing Magnus. We don't want to take any risks here. No, I mean, objectively, it's not a bad move, though. I mean, it's correct in terms of putting the pawns in the right color with the dark square bishop. You want to have back rank mate averted. But I'm thinking he might have something more aggressive. There is difficulty, though. I mean, what are you going to do? With the C file, you can't play rook c1. Rook d2 is very awkward, so there's like no way to get your rooks in the game. I would consider a4. I mean, I know that a4 looks like it's a little bit weakening, but it gains space. The rook might crawl up through a2. Maybe it is a weakness, though. You know, objectively, black play like knight b4, have control of the b4 square. I don't know. h3 looks solid. Anyway, it's not a lot going on here. Bishop f4 is sort of weird. I was expecting him to come back with this. Obviously, a4 stops b5, by the way. I mean, that is probably relevant. But, in a vacuum, I would retreat my bishop back to b2. We are concerned about b5, followed by rook to c2, though. Mr. Coffee might want to add more tactics to his arsenal. Rook takes d7, queen d7, knight e5. Better half of a draw for white. So he plays this. White really has no threats. He's looking at the d6 square, but he's not. I mean, you could even play bishop d6. It makes some sense. Really, nothing's happening. It's about equal. White has a tiny edge. Ew, yeah. He's lurking around the d6 square. Queen a8. Still b6, queen a8. No, we can't. This knight has to go somewhere. Maybe knight c5 now? Black is getting kind of tangled up. This was weird. I admit, bishop f4 is trickier than it looks. I mean, you're just kind of keeping an eye on d6. What if black just plays b5? I mean, I've had enough of this, you know? I think that maybe he's going to lose a pawn. He's going to lose the pawn. If this, yeah, it's just like problem with that pawn. It's not that easy for black to free himself here. Deceptive. It is really weird. So what does black do now? Bishop f6 was just a one-move threat, and this doesn't help. And that's it. Well, let's see. We have knight takes c7, pawn takes h5, knight d6, knight. This move's good too. Black just resigned, losing a piece now. Wow, impressive, Mr. Coffee. You know, this move, bishop f4, to me, stands out. Because if it was a blitz game or something, I would have automatically played bishop b2. To be honest, to stay on the pretty long diagonal. But it's interesting. It might turn out that his move is even stronger than bishop b2. At the end of the day, the engine thinks it's a tiny bit, 1.1, 0.2 cent pawn stronger than bishop b2. That was a good judgment. Okay, Mr. Coffee, cool game. I mean, it wasn't very exciting, but you won quite easily at the end when black just couldn't find a move. It's not that easy to find a move. Bishop f6 looks like it's a blunder. Black couldn't find a move. Knight b6, trying to trade pieces. This has got to be it, right? This isn't so bad. Black needs to try to play to trade pieces in a restricted position. Yeah. All right. Let's try one more game. Nefedov, I've got, how much time do I have left? We have half an hour left. A little more than half an hour, about 40 minutes. Nefedov, move 11, and Oliveira has a Lila analysis. All right. Nefedov. Could you go over one of my latest over the board games, please? Choose a game. Any game. Vivian. All right. Vivian. Vivian. David. Pennington Jeffrey. Another David. Or Phil. Draw. I want to do the game with Vivian. We'll start with number 1. All right. Nefedov is black. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6. In honor of our friend, someone on sound, we played C3. The delayed Danish gambit. Danish delayed. No, it's not. It's the Ponziani. There was a book by a Hungarian player, Tom Chani, who wrote a book on the Ponziani years ago. Not an opening where there's much really theory out there. I think it's a good choice to get out of book for white. Nefedov has his systems worked out though. Juicebox, good to see you. What's up, man? The other move is d5. There's a lot of theory on that. And I tend to recall, what is it, like queen a4, bishop d7? There's like an Almashi game, I thought. This is a cool variation. E takes d5, knight d4. It's good enough for Almashi. I don't see Almashi's name there. I thought he played this, though. Traditionally, the main line is that queen a4, f6. But basically, when Tom Chani, this Hungarian master who wrote the book on the Ponziani, when he did his book, he sort of just divided it flat up into 2 chapters. Like, one chapter is d5 and one chapter is knight f6. They're like completely different. So this is mainline d4. And so I never read it. I mean, I don't really study this. Is e takes d4 possibly transposing to another opening, I wonder? Probably not. I do remember this, though. Tom Chani goes into a lot of analysis on this. This is like one of the main lines. I don't know. I guess all lines are more or less equal at the end of the day. Black should equalize against the Ponziani. That's why it's not a mainstream opening. I don't think it should be necessarily worse, though. You know, white should be able to maintain about equality. But Nefedov here, how well is he prepared for the Ponziani? Let's see. Pawn takes pawn. Knight takes d4. Whoops. Dude, you know what that is? That's doing c3 in the Scotch, man. Seriously. That's like you're playing the Scotch and you recapture, right? Pawn takes, knight takes, black plays knight f6. Hey, I just thought of something. Let's play c3 in this position. Not a good idea. Tom Chani. It's a Tom Chani Panziani. I love your phonetic pronunciation. That's great. That's sick, man. C3. Jeez. Poor. It's probably like a 10-year-old girl or something, and I'm making fun of her. But seriously, I mean, if you're going to play the Panziani, you got to at least know the first 4 moves. The whole point of it is to like surprise people. C3, knight f6, d4, pawn takes d4. So you have to play e5, and this is where it gets interesting. It's not even clear if black should play knight e4 or knight d5 at first glance. If knight e4, does this seriously look like it? It looks like something from another opening. Could it transpose to something else after that? Someone on sound should be here. He would understand what's going on. Hui Fan Magnus, e5. It's a good choice to get out of book. Knight d5. Feels like a c3 Sicilian. Actually, queen b3 really feels like a c3 Sicilian. I mean, it's not a c3 Sicilian. The pawn's in the wrong place. If the pawn was on e7, we would have a c3 Sicilian. If the c7 pawn was on e7... So c takes d4, presumably. It looks okay for both sides. A little bit better for white, though. So this line doesn't feel that exciting for black, honestly. All right, so she takes with a knight. Now the question is, can we take that pawn? It's a free pawn or not? Knight e4. Knight e4, queen e2, queen e7, knight f5. That's bizarre. Knight e4, queen e2, queen e7, knight f5, queen e5, and black is better, right? Oh, man. So Nefedov does not falter. He's afraid of no ghosts. No, this is essential. Well, you can just play d5, but f3. If queen e2, d5, f3, you're going to lose a piece. You best be prepared to sacrifice a piece. Steinitz. It's a Steinitzian sacrifice. No, I wouldn't unnecessarily sacrifice a piece. This is really not necessary. I mean, queen e7 should be adequate. The computer points out the Scotch idea. I hadn't thought of this. Queen e7, knight b5. You have king d8 to cover. That's weird, but the queens are likely to get traded here. So if you want to play d5, it's a different story. You're now sacrificing a piece. And I'm not really sure if you've got enough for it. Let's do it this way. If you want to have fun, I mean, that might work in a 3-minute blitz game. We're basically down a piece. No. So she played this. Nefedov takes the b pawn, which is natural. I would have taken with the b pawn too. Because frankly, you figured that your opponent here is going to have drawing chances in an endgame if the pawns are... I mean, you'd think even a weak player would have serious drawing chances here after d takes c, queen d8 check, king d8, symmetrical, your extra pawn is doubled. You gotta approve of Nefedov's recapture here. You know, on a totally unrelated subject, guys, it just popped in my head the other day. Can we look at something for a minute? What happens if you try to play against the Exchange Roy Lopez? I always like, you know, I always assume this is just totally refuted, right? But it's not that simple. People actually play this. Yeah, because I mean, knight takes e5, you still have queen g5 or queen e7. It's no problem. I wonder how playable this is. Has anybody ever seen, you know, really looked at this? Because I'm so sick of people playing the exchange variation. You know, it seems like it's completely dismissed by theory. It just popped in my head. How bad is that for black? To play b takes c in the exchange variation. Anyway, Nefedov plays b takes c, bishop d3, knight c5, castles, knight takes d3, bishop e7, rook e1, castles, and now bishop f4. You see, this move I don't like. I agree with the computer. Nefedov plays d5 here, and it's like, dude, I mean, that looks like a target. Your pawn structure is more compact after d6. This is way more compact. Look how hard it is to attack the base of the pawn chain at c7 if you play d6. This is like really a mistake. Much, much harder for black to face any difficulties because that c7 pawn can't be attacked. d5 is definitely a mistake. I mean, there's the base of your pawn chain. After this pawn is like a ripe apple on c7. Then the pawns are, you can also undermine it with c4. No, I think that Nefedov is definitely making a mistake here. This is way more compact for black to play d6. I don't like that. Yeah, he's still a pawn up. The other thing is there's holes like c5. The pawns are more spread out. And in this structure, like with d6, you might play like c5 and bishop e7. You might even put the bishop on the long diagonal or something like that. So I think he's taking his opponent a little lightly with d5. And there's also this sort of two knights or whatever type of blockading strategy. Imagine if white was to get like control of c5 here. It would be a positional catastrophe if white was able to blockade those pawns. You could even be worse. Like, it could just be one of those two knights defenses where white has a good knight and you have a bad bishop and your extra pawn becomes completely meaningless. Nefedov said he felt it as soon as he played it. I mean, yeah, you saw this clearly. You knew that there would be no direct siege of your c7 pawn. I think white should probably, ironically, play like bishop e3 here. Maybe you can play c5 though. Everything's protected. It's the best move, probably. Tactical defense. The last thing we want is white setting up a total bind on c5. That would be the white like next move. So she takes, and this is an important decision. Do you take with the pawn or you take with the queen? If you take with the queen and white plays like b4, you play c5. Maybe this is a good move by Nefedov now. B takes. And whatever that is. C takes. Slightly improving the pawn structure we've arrived at. It's not quite as bad as it was. I'm concerned about rook b8. A good move in general. I wonder if you're just forcing her to play b4. Never want to force your opponents to make good moves, or encourage them to make good moves. Although we can't physically stop white from playing b4. Maybe Warnake's favorite move is appropriate now. The a5 special. a5 is always a good move. It's certainly okay. But again, nothing's going to magically win the position for black here. Computer says a5. I mean, if white is just going to play b4 no matter what we do, then we might as well just not even play rook b8, I guess. That's the problem. Nefedov's opponent played knight d4. I mean, clearly, like b4 and a3 and just sit there, it becomes difficult for black to make progress, very likely. He can try for the rest of his life, but it's not going to be easy to prove that his extra pawn is rook e2. No, and b4 is much better. And rook e2 is okay. Okay, she has to be careful here. You know, that white does play b4 in the near future. So now there's like knight f5 to be concerned about, but we can't allow knight c6. Bishop d7. Damn, Nefedov, rook b6 is very awkward. I can't approve of that move. It might be good, though. Maybe rook b6 is good. There are a lot of options. Queen b6, rook b6, bishop d7. All of them are playable. I mean, even queen c7, like Savadog's opponent. Hey, this is a great square for the queen. No. No, that's not a good move, Savadog's opponent. Queen c7 is not a good square for the queen. In this position or in the King's Indian, this is not a good square. This queen has a lot of mobility, as you can see. Like c7 is not where it wants to be. Queen b6 looks like it allows rook 7. Not good. So I would play this if it was a blitz game. Nefedov's rook move is a little bit awkward. But I think he's seeing deviously far. You know, he's thinking like b4, c5, bc, and his rook is lifting over here to give a Morphy-like checkmate on the king's side. You know, he's fantasizing about the future. You see, that's why white needs to play b4, so that it doesn't get captured by a rook. Yeah, she needs to play b4. It may be too late already, right? Like c5, is that just strong? Knight d4 was stupid, you know. I mean, knight d4 is a seriously stupid move. Because one of the best things about white's position is that the queen eyes d5 here. So black can never play c5 without dropping that pawn. So if white just plays like b4 and then secures it with a3 and sits, it's going to be hard for Nefedov to mobilize c5. He's going to have to play something ugly like bishop b7, some very artificial way of like protecting his pawn on d5 in order to even play c5. This move, I think, leaves white with very good chances to save the game, objectively. a5, a3. I would be extremely optimistic with white here. I'm going to save a draw, like half a point in this position. It's just not easy for black to win. But it looks like knight d4. I mean, knight d4 looks active, but is it really doing anything? She's thinking about fantasy attacking motifs. This doesn't even threaten anything. Yeah, c5. No knight b3, knight f5. This is just stupid. So now we traded like a kind of weak pawn, a double pawn for a relatively healthy pawn, and that breaks up white's structure too. So black's now just like practically winning. I mean, he's up a pawn, but he has the advantage of better pawn structure too. And rook on the 7th rank and maybe a better minor piece. I would be inclined to move my bishop at this point if I were black. A bishop e6 looks really good, Nefedov. I mean, I don't really see why. I might even take the pawn on a2. Okay, that's a little greedy. But I don't see a good move for white here. Queen b6. Again, there's some flaws. The rook on the 7th. Now he played it. White has one last gasp. Rook g3, knight f4, knight h5. Everything gearing up for g7 on the dark squares. Yeah, I think e6 is better centralized. Nefedov loves exchanges, especially when he's a pawn up. He's right. He's right to do so. I mean, against an amateur player, they're not going to play endgames like this really well. I didn't check Nefedov's opponent's rating or anything. I'm assuming that it's lower rated. F2 is just hanging. Yeah, just a blunder. What about taking... Objectively, you should try to keep the queens on the board, I guess. Queen g3, if I'm white here. Attack this pawn. Stay in the game. But, worst case scenario, takes, rook to the 7th. Maybe she still has some practical chances to save the game. But this is just a miscalculation of some sort. There's no tactic here with rook takes e6. The rook is hanging. The rook has nowhere to move without dropping the knight, and white is just lost. That was a nasty trap. I have to admit, that's a nice one. If he takes here, it's a draw. Or is it? Rook takes g7 check. That's perpetual. Yeah, that's a draw. It's a nice little last gasp trap for white. Cheapo. He saw it. Nefedov defends his a7 pawn, but d6 is hanging now. So he's winning, but it's not over yet. The knight is really humiliated at c1. a6. a6 is a strange move, one has to admit. We all assume Nefedov was banking on the fact that his pawn was protected on a7. But he liked his opponent so much, he unprotects his pawn. Is there some sort of trap here? Like, is the knight on c1 trapped if she takes the pawn? It has to be, right? That's nasty. Queen takes a6, queen b2. This is a devious Nefedov trap. Queen takes a6, queen b2, trapping the knight on c1. Yeah, a5 would have been less tempting for white, you know, to try to fall into this little trap. He liked his opponent so much, he offered her this wonderful little way to go wrong. But white played queen e5 instead. Much more direct problem. He still has g5, it looks like. g6. g6 is preferable. Nefedov playing for cheapos. The acerbate school of chess. 92. Was this time pressure related? You'd love to trade queens. White knows better. King g7, knight d4. Queen d5. I feel a draw coming on. That's actually Pavel's favorite result. She's getting something going on the dark square, so those 3 pieces. This rook, man. How about your rook? You're not even really able to use your extra pawn here. What does that mean, Admiral Akbar? Do I look like Admiral Akbar? Did I drink too much wine or something? Started to look like a lobster. Oh, he says it's a trap? Yeah, I get it. Alright. I thought I looked like Admiral Akbar. Maybe just a little bit. Rook e8, rook f3. Now here I was thinking we have a problem. But he manages to keep everything protected. Dude, let me guess. It's a draw. You found a way. Why is this a draw now? She's going to take on a6? I'd still be playing for a win. Nefedov is such a nice guy. King g8, queen a6. Maybe h5. The problem is Nefedov doesn't have the killer instinct. If you look like Admiral Akbar, even Bob wouldn't tell you that you did. I don't know about that. Alright, Nefedov, it was nice of you to give that opponent a draw. Slowly. She never really fully equalized. I mean, even the final position, the pawn's not necessarily going anywhere. You can play like h5, h4, you have mating threats with rook e1. I could see white losing even with the queens traded in this position because the c3 pawn and the a2 pawn are still weaknesses. Even if she could fend off the mating threats with h5, h4, queen e5, rook e1, by trading queens you'd still have winning chances with those 2 weak pawns on the queen side. Just too generous. Too generous of a draw there by Nefedov. Alright, move 11. One of his blitz games. Can I improve in the opening? Okay, guys, we have just a few minutes left. Can he improve in the opening? Accelerated, hyper-accelerated dragon? Yes. First thing you need to do is stop playing g6. I'm just kidding. I mean, this is one of my own openings. Yeah. Play the Najdorf like everyone else. Or play the Sveshnikov. Okay, that's the first improvement. Freaking Marazzi. But I've talked about this with move 11 before. There's nothing we could do to avoid this. Marazzi. Queen b6 here, we talked about. Kind of a weird move. I wouldn't call it really improving. Let's see the line he played. Alright, so real line. This is just very, very strange. I'm not a huge fan of the Soltis Dragon or whatever, but I would be inclined to play h5 here. In this particular position. On the other hand, you don't have to. But I think it is difficult to see other ideas. I mean, I guess you could also play bishop c6 here. Threatening e5. This is the hyper-accelerated dragon. Oh, Soltis. So, I mean, in the main lines of the Yugoslav attack, Soltis would play like h5, you know. In the main line Yugoslav attack dragon, there's a variation where black either plays h5 or he doesn't play h5. Soltis did all the the groundbreaking work on the mainline dragon where black plays h5. You know, I'm just referencing that concept. Black is playing h5 here. I think this move is fine, actually. You can't play a Marazzi like it's the Yugoslav attack, you know. There are a few variations where white can do h4. All right. We need to attack fast now. This doesn't look right to me. I mean, you could probably play a lot of things, even maybe b5. I wonder if this is ridiculous. I guess white would just take it. Probably ridiculous. I would never play knight g4 here. Maybe you have time to play bishop e6. I'm a little bit scared of this. But we have fast counterplay. Should be fairly fast counterplay against c4. This is not a normal dragon. So I'm not impressed by knight g4. The other option is to play more naturally. Maybe you have this. You're actually threatening knight takes e4 in this position. If you play queen a5. Olivier Lucas, you said you don't like knight takes d4. The problem is, like I had against Magnus's dad, if you don't do knight takes d4, they'll do knight c2. But this isn't right. Something's wrong with this position. Well, normally they castle first. Why are there so few games with knight c2? I don't understand what's wrong with knight c2 here, but there's no games at all. That's strange. I don't know. I mean, it seems like a very standard plan for white to keep the pieces on the board. Black plays bishop d7. Castles. Yeah, I mean, I guess move 11's exchanging knights like one move too early, but I still wonder what's wrong with this knight c2 move. Is there some way that white can exploit knight c2? Because knight g4, no. I had a game like that where I decimated my opponent. I mean, maybe not as good as we thought, though. The knight on c2 here. I still like this exchange for white. But this is true. This isn't great here. Maybe that's worth something. The knight is misplaced on c2. You're done for today. Take it easy. Have a break. I think you just forced white to put his bishop on the long diagonal. What do you mean the long diagonal? What long diagonal? It's kind of a weird move order. Because white almost always castles first. This is a very unusual position. I mean, I don't know. Almost never do they play queen d2 here. It's very, very rare to see this. I don't think this is a mistake, though. Computer likes this for white. I like queen a5 because no, queen a5 now, it's too late. I'm saying queen a5 now, threatening knight takes e4. Now he castles. I mean, this would give you more flexibility, because then if castles queen, so you could play h5 and transpose. He doesn't have time for this, because you have knight takes e4. All right, anyways, let's see what happened. h5. I don't like this move a lot. Black just ends up with the kind of useless bishop that's very typical. So both sides, like, essentially, well, white made a horrendous blunder, bishop h6. Game over. But white should play bishop takes g4, or bishop takes g7 followed by bishop takes g4. This is very standard. And I don't really like these type of positions for black a lot. This just no fun. This bishop is not as good as the knight. I call it the ghost bishop. It just doesn't really have a function. Although it would probably be better for white to be like kingside castled with the pawn back on h2. And then black would have no chance of counterattack at all. Here at least black has a chance to attack the c4 pawn, so it's not all that bad. But as far as the opening goes, you know, I don't really think knight takes d4 is a mistake. Computer says queen a5. Yeah, that's definitely weird. I don't like that. I don't like knight g4. I don't like queen a5. I would play either bishop d7 or knight takes d4. This is a point, you know, that knight c2 here. Now knight g4. The argument would be that in the resulting position here, after bishop takes g4, this knight is kind of weirdly placed on c2. And I still think that white is slightly better here. All right, guys, last thing I want to look at, I got to go. But Olivier Lucas wanted to take a look at this. Was this wasn't it, right? No. You sent me a link. Sorry. You sent me a link. Study with reference games for the London system. Lila versus Anscott. Which was it you wanted to look at? This Lila versus Anscott? I sent you this game because you said you were studying a game that followed the line until knight f7 or queen b6. In the other game? Yeah, we didn't get to it last time. Wasn't that it? I guess I didn't get to his game last time. This is the game I told you during the stream. I thought you made a good... I made a good match, but computer says one blunder, one mistake, 3 imprecisions. Oh. Oh, it was... We saw this last week, right? The first game of the study. You're talking about the other study. Yeah, you're talking about the other study. All right. We saw this last time. Yeah. One last time. You said it's the first game of the study. All right, here. Yeah, I mean, c5 right away is like the most dynamic move for black. I would normally get to this position by a different move order, where I would have played knight f6 on move 1 or 2. Because I played the Indian defense, I wouldn't be able to play knight c6. I don't play d4, d5 much. So I've been playing a lot of games like this against PSG, soccer rook, you know. But let's see what happened here in this game. So we're actually going to transpose to a normal London. And this move looks like it's really important. I was asking about this a couple weeks ago. Right, I mean, the question as to whether it's better to play c3 or knight on bd2 for white in this critical London. Knight b2 develops a piece. c3 just is another pawn move. It's a traditional sort of London system move to play c3. Okay, takes on c5. Who said that? Warnaki? He gives up the center, man. You know, it's a totally different style of chess. You're playing a kind of Slav, long Slav style game where you're giving up your central pawn. It may be playable, but it's not, you know, like the most principled move. This looks like best. And queen b6. So, right, yeah, we talked about this briefly, and that's why Oliveira Lucas sent this. I think it's kind of an irrational position. So this turns out to be the theory, and I guess... So this is Leela chess with white, 3,300 against a 3,400. Taking on c5, taking on b2. All these grandmasters have played this already. It's all basically borrowed from computer analysis, I assume. This has all been checked. Rook b1, and now I didn't ever really look at this. Queen c3. I mean, I don't play the London system, and I never really considered playing something this sharp with black. It requires a lot of memorization to play this variation, clearly. Mr. Coffee, thanks for the donation, man. Good to see you. Home early from work on a Thursday. So, Lucas says, after queen takes c3 or queen c3, try to make other moves with black, but white enters some crazy computer lines. Gets a better game every time. Yeah, it's funny. It looks like bishop b5 played every single game. And, almost. And the computer thinks that bishop b5 and bishop d3 are equivalent, but that's... Stockfish on my machine is not Leela chess, and it's not all that strong. I trust these guys that bishop b5 is the best move. The queen is obviously, you know, got to be careful not to get trapped, but it has a5 back. It's not getting trapped. e6. Castles. I mean, clearly this move, like there's a footnote here with queen takes c5. But I mean, clearly that's not necessary. And we would prefer to like probably play bishop takes c5 and get that out, you know, in one move. Then take on c5 with the queen, which is kind of weird. c5 will be a very strange square for our queen. I feel like the queen is safest just coming back to a5, you know, if it has to. I mean, no doubt this is all engine analysis. Bishop takes c5 apparently loses. One possibility is white can play rook b3 and c4 and blast open the game. The other possibility, and you also have to watch for moves like bishop e5. The other possibility is that white just exploits this pin, you know. I mean, queen takes c5 is playable. But c4, white just like rips open the position. I mean, for the cost of a pawn, the black queen is kind of in a dangerous place, and black's king is still in the center of the board. King and queen don't seem safe at the cost of one pawn. So black's not in a hurry to take that pawn. He just plays this. But now there's some sort of novelty here. Take care, Mr. Coffee. One would expect moves like knight d4, knight d5. What is this? So this is some sort of ultra deep move. I mean, I could even see variations where this rook could become enraged and rampage on the king side. I don't know, I guess I was expecting black to take it. But he's not going to take it. If pawn takes pawn, my god, man. So the queen gets trapped with knight c4. It's literally trapped. It's a beautiful variation. Pawn takes rook b3. Everything's covered. a5, covered by the knight. It's laterally blocked. Nowhere to go this way. So pawn takes is not possible. This is a cool novelty. Castles, e5. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you started to see this variation get played. People find this game. It's like a French. It's a French. It's just dynamic for white, like a winged gambit or something. Threatening to trap the queen again with bishop d2. The beautiful line. This is literally the only square for the queen to go to. Yeah, it doesn't understand. I mean, it's not that Stockfish doesn't understand. It just can't calculate far enough to calculate its way all the way to the end. It doesn't understand anything at all, like we do, or like even lichess does. It's not like artificial intelligence. Stockfish is just a brute force calculator. It's not a thinking, sentient AI or something. Is the queen still trapped? This is amazing. It's a long-term pawn sacrifice. The Stockfish thinks that black is better because black's up a pawn here. But black is very restricted. You know, look at the pieces. Look at the zone in which these pieces operate. You know, if you compare, if you were to draw like a line, essentially, about how much territory each side controls, it's kind of like, you know, there's a big difference. You got amazing difference in spatial control here. White controls like 2/3 of the board almost in this position in exchange for one pawn. His board control is like almost double. a6, bishop d3, not exchanging pieces, and now the king side. Clearly there are direct. I mean, rook lifts are just like routine for lichess, right? This rook lift I brought up before. There's this rook lift. I was thinking white might even blast the position with c4 at some point, opening it up even more. I think now we're reaching the point where a human might be able to really like win this direct sort of invasion on the dark squares. Kamsky or somebody, you know. h4, h5, queen d2, g3, rook h1. Yeah. We're entering kind of human zone. Maybe even like king h2. Maybe we don't need to play g3. Just king h2, rook h1. Not to weaken this long diagonal here. See? We play G3, we're in trouble. I would think that black, has to consider D4. Really well played game by both sides, objectively. Wow. That's a nice game. Crazy. That looks bad. What about the black king side? Man, this is just crazy. And then we just go into total computer mode. Yeah, like this move. Who in the world would have expected King G2? King G2. And what a bizarre move. What does that even do? Like, seriously, it allows us to move the F-pawn, right? It allows us to play F3, I guess. Oh my god. King G3. I mean, there's no one to say these are perfect moves or anything. It's like Horizon effect. It reminds me of the old computers when they started to just realize they had a lost position. Just go into like giveaway mode. Yeah, it's so alien. F5 last chance. What do we do now? Bishop E5 and Queen H7. What's up with Queen H7? It's made in 9 apparently. But what's the deal with Queen H7? We're just playing Bishop G7? Is that seriously some kind of perverse? Bishop G7, pawn takes knight, Queen E7. Are you kidding me? I want to see this. Yeah, it's Bishop G7. And if pawn takes knight, Queen E7. And if rook takes rook, Queen takes E6 check. That's it. Alright, man. Thank you for sharing that game. That was cool. Yeah, it's just too sharp. Very, very difficult to handle this type of variation for both sides. I wouldn't play this for black because it's just too dangerous. Honestly, that's why I play like, variations like this. I mean, I've been playing this slightly different type position, knight F6. Basically, knight F6 is a little bit different. Anyway, Queen B6, these type of pawn hunting moves, I mean, you're asking for trouble when you play that with black. I mean, it's okay for a computer to try to do that, but I think it's very dangerous for humans. I think black should play something more solid. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining me for the stream. Thanks to everybody who donated, supported the stream with subscriptions, for anonymous gift subs as well. Mr. Slowhand didn't make it. He didn't make it in today, but thanks for him for his donations. Hardweiss, Nudel, Jim, Alms, Warnaki, WJ Loof, HTFP, Merle, Mr. Coffee. Thanks everybody for donating. We'll be back on Friday, tomorrow that is, with a morning stream. And you like the London for white. I think it's just overplayed now. It's just boring for me because everybody plays it. That's why I don't like it. Anyway, guys, we'll be back on Friday. We're going to do some Blitz tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. Thanks, Mr. Coffee. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Hey. Bye, guys.